let's talk about the 6 things that to help make parties comfortable during mediation. This list could be 10, 15 things, easy, or more, who knows. uh, Number one I had was make sure they're heard. um, right, the case I'm thinking of right now, there were professionals on both sides, and so in this case it was an insurance case. And so you know how attorneys and the professionals in the room, they'll start talking shop, right? They'll start, talking either using legal jargon or industry jargon. And a lot of times the parties, you can see their eyes kind of swimming because they don't really know what's going on, but they're too kind of intimidated, or they don't want to, for whatever reason, they don't pipe up. And so, um, early on in the mediation, excuse me, in my opening statements, when I have pro ses, and Clarissa, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about when, like, why do you vary an opening statement? I will, let the parties who aren't the professionals know, hey, by the way, one way or another, we're all here for you, and so you may hear either, legalese or industry words, terms of art that you're not familiar with. Let us know. We are stop us, and we can explain them to you. Okay. And they tend to really appreciate that. And so at one point, the professionals were talking, and they tried to say something, but the professionals just kept talking, right? Hey, Sonal, good to see you. The professionals just kept talking, so I stopped everybody, right? And typically we don't like to stop folks, right, when they're doing a good job going back and forth. But who are the important parties? It's those parties, right? In this case, it was the insured. Everybody is here for them one way or another, and their voice is important too. And when you let them know, hey, I know you're important, they appreciate it and they have more buy-in. And so I stopped everyone and I said, I'm sorry, I think Mr. and Mrs. So and so had a comment. And so I stopped everyone so they could make their comment heard, and it turned out to really be a great thing that they said. And so, let's not give the floor to, let's not let attorneys and the professionals kind of take all the oxygen in the room. When you see that one of the non-professionals needs to pipe up, or it looks like they want to say something, or they get cut off, stop and give them the floor. And it makes a big difference, right? It empowers them and they feel good about it as well. And let's be honest, we want everyone to see us as an ally, right? And so, but it's easy to forget about the non-professionals in the room because they're typically quiet, right? So, yeah, Linda, please. You're on mute, by the way.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Along with that,
Yeah.
Tye, is I've had parties say, well, that's the reason I have my attorney here, is because he is speaking for me.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I have pursued that, and I'm glad I have, to say, well, I would just like, is it okay if you acknowledge that he's explaining what you would like to say correctly? And they have opened up more, understanding that, yes, we respect the reason the attorney's there, but like you just said, it doesn't mean that they can't talk.
Right. Yes. I'm actually really glad you said what you said, for a few different reasons. One, um, what about when attorneys will, again, they start to suck all the air in the room, right? And we don't hear from the parties. A lot of times mediators say things like, no, I want to hear from the parties. And so I I think that mediators have to also be careful, though. We have to make sure to do that, but we have to make sure to do that when appropriate. Like, for instance, the first thing you start off with, right? Parties will say, I brought my attorney because I'm more comfortable with them talking. And we hear that a lot, don't we? And so um, when that's the case, then let the attorney do their job. And so we don't then have to stop every time the attorney says something, say, is that right? Is that what you want me to do? Because that is why they're hiring the attorney. So I think mediators also, there's still a fine line there as well. Like we don't want to cross the line, and because we still want to respect the attorney client relationship, right? And we want the attorney on our side. We don't want the attorney to see us as a problem. And if and I've early on when I was a new mediator, right? You tend to want to make sure that I'm empowering the parties, right? And so you tend to do that thing. You tend to kind of push the attorney aside and look at them and say, is that what you want? I think we have to know when to do that, right? So we're always reading the temperature in the room. And so if your spider sense isn't going off, you don't need to make sure, right? But at some point, so like I said earlier in my opening, for instance, I'll say, and so it's really, I'll address them directly. And I'll say, so it's really important that you know that your voice is here to be heard, and we will hear you at any time. If you have any questions, please stop us. And by the same token, let's say the attorney is talking. And then when they're done, I'll say, counsel, thank you so much. But I'll say, counsel and Mr. or Mrs. So and so, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So even though the attorney was talking, I will include them because is the attorney not talking for them? Right. And this way, I'm including them in it as if it was coming from them. And I'll say, and unless counsel has anything else to say, or Mr. and Mrs. have anything else to say, I'll turn it over to counsel and then I'll stop. And so that's me giving them a chance to say something. And let's be honest, usually they say, no, no, it's fine. Because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. And then I'll turn it over. But by the same token, you know me, I'm big on a mediator's instinct. So Linda, right, when you're getting that sense, no, on the contrary, you should act on it. We want to know. We want to hear from them. But I think rather than we always do that, it's a question of knowing when to do it. And knowing when to do it is, again, it's my experience, my mediator's instinct is telling me, ooh, I should check in with these people. Something's wrong. And or everything's going well and you're seeing that they're working really well with their attorney, then I'm not going to kind of go there because I want to let the attorney run the show on that side. How do you control the room by not trying to control the room, right? So
But at the same time, Tye, you don't want to every 5 minutes say, "Oh, well, we got a caucus and explain that," or "We want to hear from you." So even when things are going well, um, if it is apparent that the mediation is going to go on for quite some time,
mhm,
I still might stop every, I don't know, 45 minutes,
mhm,
maybe
mhm.
not, you know, and just say, everybody okay? Do we need
I
to
love that.
do we need
I
to
love that.
stretch? We have a stretch break. Um,
I'm writing that down because it's important. You're right. You're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. Um, that's taking care of the parties, even the attorneys, and you're checking in with them. Is that so? I just want to make sure everybody's good. Counsels, if you need anything, do we need a break, Mr. and Mrs., Mr. or Miss? Are you good? Are you okay? I think that's smart. I like that very, very much. Right? Because they're going to see us doing it as well. Part of what I'm talking about, what are we doing? We're creating rapport, right? We're getting the parties to trust us because the more so every time you do that, Linda, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a great idea. Do it regularly and do it as needed. And what's as needed because something inside you're saying, oh, I better check with this person. Something seems a little right. You're typically when you feel that you're right. Something's going on. But it's not what we say, it's how we say what we say. And so how do I check on the folks this time? Do I use a joke? Do I say, hey, do we have to go to the bathroom? Do I know I get hangry sometimes. Anybody needs something to eat, if you see what I'm saying. And so I'll try and if people are laughing, they're not arguing, right? And so, as appropriate, I'll use different techniques. Matter of fact, Linda, I don't know if this was, and this is probably my number six. I'm going to jump to number six, is compliment them. So I was in, and I know, it sounds like I'm being disingenuous, but I look for opportunities actually to say nice things to people, because everybody likes to be complicated. Complicated. Everybody is complicated. Everybody likes to be complimented. And so I don't know if this was the mediation you were in with me, Linda, but this guy, one of the parties, if you just looked really fast and looked away, he kind of looked like Ben Affleck. And so I said, Dad, and I call everybody mom and dad in my family mediation, so long as there's minor children. And I said, I just gotta say, you look a little bit like Ben Affleck to me. And now you might think, yeah, that's being a little disingenuous, but his face lit up. He goes, yeah, I get that a lot. Ha. And I said, I'll just refer to you as Batman. And then ha ha ha, everybody laughs. And then at some point later on, we were getting close to signing, and I need everybody's phone numbers. Email addresses. And he said something. Oh, I got to go get my kids. I said, that's okay. Listen, you can call in if you want. Get in the get in the Batmobile and just call in on the Bat line. And he goes, well, I can't give that number out. So it became. I was like, I understand. I'm just a citizen. Much my point, though. It's that little fun banter back and forth that I started off with a compliment, can really help at times. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying compliment folks just to no, but when you see something, compliment them. And I can remember another time, the mom in another family case. Anybody know? Not House of Dragons, but the first show. Why am I not thinking of it? Come on, everybody. House
Game
of
of
Dragons.
Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Thank you, Wendy. I knew she would know. The Queen of the North, who was Jon Snow's sister, right? I forget what her name was, but she had long red hair, very very pretty. This woman looked just like her, and so I said, "You know who you look like? You look like the Queen of the North." She goes, "I get that a lot, ha ha ha." And so anyway, it has worked for me, and so I think when appropriate, and so long as it doesn't look like you're being weird about it. Sansa, yes, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Compliment them. Complimenting your parties when they do something right. When you really remind me of Ben Affleck. My gosh, you look like the Sansa. They love that stuff. Who doesn't like hearing you look like a movie star? So even though it sounds a little funny and a little weird, I have found compliments as appropriate to really help make a little bit of build some more rapport, help just get them to like you a little bit better. Okay.